This is Blue July, and you're listening to the Be Someone podcast. Lights looking bright, the H got the vibe. She's my name on the signs, it's my time to shine. When I was cruising 45, and it crossed my mind that I shine like the sun and that I'll be someone.
All right, hey, welcome everyone to the Be Someone podcast. This is your host, Coach Chris Ortiz, and today we are joined again by Michelle Keys. How are you doing?
Wonderful. Thank you for having me back.
Oh my God, it's a blessing 100% on our side. And then I think it's really nice that we're going to be able to use your beautiful kitchen as a backdrop. It's just going to give us just so much more.
Awesome.
So I'm going to start with something that we chatted about briefly because it's actually the way that I, got to know, who you were. A good friend of mine, Jesse Robinson, told me about this wonderful, vivacious woman that's got energy, that used food to help heal. And I'm remembering some of the vernacular, that you told me about.
Yes.
But you used food, to heal your son's, cancer, right? So let's start off with what was it like receiving, that information?
So that was back in 2007, and my son went in for adenoid surgery. And when the surgeon came out, it turned out it wasn't a problem with adenoids at all. There was a tumor there, and it was actually pretty progressed. So we was stage 3, almost a stage 4, with something called Burkitt's lymphoma. So we immediately were admitted to MD Anderson. They treated him on the pediatric cancer ward, floor 9, I believe, and purple rooms. I still have these visuals. And so after his diagnosis, what happened was he was immediately treated and chemotherapy 6 to 7 months. And then here we were. He was tiny. He was almost 4 years old. So he was 3.5 when he was diagnosed. Almost 4, I guess, when we left. And he was tiny. They called him immunosuppressed. And we were 2 young parents that just didn't know what to do with this. So we had been there on the cancer ward. Now we were free to go and navigate this new normal. And I just didn't even know where to begin. So considering that he was immunosuppressed, I was like, well, let's try and target this part right here. If his immune system is suppressed, then what do I need to do to build it up? And what are the things that tear it down? And immediately I was like, these things have to go. These things have to come in abundance. So that's where we started. And cancer is very complicated. It's lock and key. And I wouldn't ever say that one thing has caused. And I don't think that I can come back and say that the food has cured. However, food is medicine. Yes. And we noticed we are all about here nutrition and wellness and evidence-based learning. So there's a lot of things people can argue with, but your personal experience is never one of them. And so we watched him go from sickly and bald and very thin to very, very pale to vibrant. And then year after year, as he is now, 20 years old, still healthy and vibrant. And we have eliminated a lot of things. It's his personal choice, though, now, as an adult, that he is very cautious as to what he takes in and what he keeps out. So it's been a wonderful journey. I would never wish this on any parent or, of course, any child. But because this was the way our life went, I feel this is why we're here, and reach out to anybody who needs us in any way with regards to disease. We pride ourselves here on teaching about an anti-inflammatory whole food way of eating, which is truly a blanket statement for any ailment. And then we can just do a little deep dive on things to target whatever ailment you have.
What were some of those things you mentioned had to go, and some of the things that were able to stay?
Yes.
Like, what were some of those things?
So the number one weakener of the immune system, spoiler alert, is sugar. So sugar comes in very many different forms. Refined sugar had to go. And there's sugar beets, for example, is one. It's a highly genetically modified crop. So there's sugar beets, and then there's the refined sugars. All these things we removed. Of course, when you have children, they like little treats and things like this. We started to substitute. So we called them sustainable substitutes. And we substituted things like honey and maple syrup and things that were natural. And I wouldn't say that these things are great for you. But on our tongues, we have sugar, we have salt, we have, all these different flavors. And you don't ever want to tell anyone they can't have sugar at all. Fruit is an amazing way to have something sweet. It doesn't have to be refined and so highly sickening sweet. But sugar's a funny thing. The more you take in, the more you crave. So there's this bliss factor that eventually that much sugar is not enough. So you need just a little bit more and just a little bit more, which is why it's one of the most addictive substances out there.
So it's eliciting a response, even like with our brain, right? When we take it in.
Huge dopamine response. It's like your phones, it's sugar, it's like a hit, a hit, a hit. Once you, for example, if you got the flu or you were down for a couple of days and you hadn't eaten anything and you take in a store-bought cupcake or something, it is so sweet. Whereas if you could have started with something a little bit less sweet, you could actually keep on that trajectory. People can eliminate sugar in about 3 to 5 days, but it has to be their mindset.
Yeah, and just to speak to your point, I've been a little bit, under the weather, and I didn't eat very much for a couple of days, and I had me a little sugary treat, and oh my goodness, it's so good. So with like the timing of this conversation is just absolutely perfect. Like food tasted so much better.
Of course.
After that.
Yes, there's always that chicken soup. You can go on chicken soup for a couple of days, and when you're feeling better, it's it's been the healing food for centuries, right? And then you can ease back into your regular foods, but that's an opportunity to take and cut back on artificial sweeteners and refined sugars, refined foods, and bring in natural things, whole foods.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of like switch lanes a little bit. I went back and I listened to our conversation, and one of the things that you spoke about that I really want to, get into is that when you did find out, about, Carson's cancer at the moment, you said that your husband said that our marriage will not waver.
Correct.
I would like to get into that a little bit more because I think that's a beautiful thing. I think that when we get into hard times, one or two things happens, like it strengthens us, right? And builds the bond, or two, it tears people apart.
Of course.
Tell me a little bit about that
Very
experience
common.
with your husband.
Sure. So we obviously were dazed and confused. We thought we were going in for an adenoid surgery. And then, within a 24-hour period, here we were making phone calls to people, letting them know that our 3-year-old has just been diagnosed with cancer. And everyone remembers where they were standing on that moment when we, talked to them. And we just were, kind of shell-shocked. And Carson came home. He was tired from anesthesia and everything. We took a nap, and our family had our daughter. And we were talking for a little while, and he just said, losing's not an option. And I was like, okay. And he said, our family will make it through this, and, our marriage will not waver, and we will come out of this stronger than before. And I was like, okay. So in my mind, I'm staring at my 3-year-old sleeping soundly in a bed thinking, am I really going to have to plan a funeral for a 3-year-old? And I was like, no. So we just stood strong. And then, proper treatment with him and a ton of prayer. A ton of prayer got us through all of that, and we're so thankful. And it's a testimony to trusting that there is, that you have no control over these things, and we are extremely respectful to those whose diagnoses and story didn't end this way. My husband and I took a walk last weekend, and I keep asking myself, I wonder, what if our story was different? Would I still be doing this? I mean, only God knows.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. We are doing this, and we want to be here. Yesterday, we had those kids camps, in the summer, pediatric kids camps, and I got a phone call. I was up here packaging some food to deliver to our cancer patients, and I got a phone call from a little girl named Maya, her mom, and said, Maya's grandparents are in town, and she wants to come up there and meet with you. And she had just missed being here. And I was like, y'all just made my day. Yes, come on. So she came with her little brother and we cooked a little. And yeah, it's just, the mindset has led to this kind of beauty. And it's the way that we've raised our kids. You can do anything you want. It's in your mind. So it's mind over matter. I just started teaching high school students, and one of the first exercises was the first thing I did was show them how to make eye contact, properly shake a hand. That was our first day of class. And then in the second day, I asked them all to hand out some Post-its, and I had them write positive messages, and they were really struggling. And I'm like,
our teens are struggling right
they
now.
They are struggling big time. And they're like what? And I said, you start with I am, and you finish it with a positive statement. For example, I am going to eat better. I am brave, or I am strong. And I told them I want them to put them all over their bathroom mirrors or somewhere they're going to see them every day. And I see some of the kids have them in their books. I see them, they don't want to talk about it too much, but every now and again, privately, you'll get a message or an email saying, this is what I did with mine. And I just said, you just have to keep telling yourself, because the more you tell yourself, the more you're going to believe it. And that's where that led.
Dive into the mindset. Like, what are you reading or what are you studying, to get these tidbits of information like what you just said right there? I've read it in my flipping book that I'm teaching teen leadership in.
Yes.
So I'd like to know, like, where are you pulling your information from?
So I love the days that I can get up early and start by listening to, a daily Bible verse or something that is positive and encouraging, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So, and I think that I take a walk and I listen to things. I want to listen to things that are going to build me up the same way that I wanted to build my son's immune system up or my family's immune system. If you are listening to junk and negative things, right, then that's the way your mind is going to go. It's kind of like which side of the grass is greener? The side you water, right? The side you water. So water your mind with positive things. Even if one girl said, but I don't eat healthy. And I said, but only you can change that. Yeah. So start telling yourself that you do, and your mind will change when you go to choose something that's not that great for you. At least you'll think about it. And that's the start. I told these kids, you're not going to change overnight. I'm still changing, and it's been 15 years.
Yeah, and it's going to be a long, slow process.
Time. Yes.
I'm definitely not at 44 who I was at 18.
Thank God, right?
Oh, my goodness. Yes, I tell my students that all the time. I'd like you to lean into the faith part, too. Like, again, this is one of those crossroads where, when you get news like that, you got to start questioning your faith.
You do.
Yes, like, why me? Why did I win this lottery? It's not the lottery I was trying to win. But
correct. And lottery is an interesting word because they told us while they were in pathology and waiting on cultures and things like that, they have to grow them, so they take time. And they were like, this appears to be this Burkitt's lymphoma, but we're pretty sure it's not because it'd be like a 1 in a million chance. And it's just so rare. It's so rare. Sure enough, it was that Burkitt's lymphoma. It was that rare form, rare and aggressive, right? And at that time, what choice do you really have? We had so much love shown toward us, yes. Family, friends that they would have done anything, and as a parent, my husband and I both, we would have taken this on. I would have taken this from my child in an instant. But that's not your choices. Your choice now. So my choice was to make my child believe they could beat this. So we gave it a name. We called it adenoid. We never owned the cancer is what we would say, or the tumor. We never owned it. We never called it Carson's tumor ever. Just strike that from what I even said, because we don't want it. We don't want any part of it. So we don't claim it. And then we would have him close his eyes as a young, 3-year-old and speak. Their imaginations are amazing, the younger they are, right? So we would speak healing things. And we had so many people come and pray with him, pray over him. And just so many people that would have so much compassion and soften their hearts. I think watching our family go through this, for some people, restored faith. For some people that had lost. It has to, right? Like you look at the way that it turned out. Mm-hmm. And you said why? Why? And that's one question I didn't dare ask. Whatever the answer to that question is, I'm kind of seeing it unfold here. This is the why.
This is the why.
This is the why. And as much as, you know, it was horrible at the time, we stayed strong, and I wouldn't change. He may have a different...
Yeah, we're going to talk to him a little bit too.
But it's an incredible journey when you come face to face with your faith and face to face with God, and you say, whatever the outcome is, this is not my child, this is your child.
Was there any struggle with that conversation, or was it that black and white when you said that?
So I think with faith, people have different gifts.
Yes.
I think one of my gifts is a childlike faith, where I don't question a lot of things. I just believe.
Yes.
And God has continued to show up and show off in my life.
Yes.
And so I just believe, and I don't understand why you wouldn't. But different people have different gifts. So I think it was very black and white, but only because I was like, okay, well, God says he will see us through, and no matter what, but you have to come to that and accept the fact that no matter what, then it's his decision and not yours. And that's hard.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Speaking of gifts, right? Like now that this is all, played out the way that it's played out, what's Carson's gift?
Oh, he has so many gifts. He has so many gifts. But I will say, I think his most treasured gift is servanthood. He is happiest when he's serving other people. He absolutely loves, and that's when he's in his happy place, is as long as he's serving others. And I think that is directly related to all that served him, and being so young, they're like little sponges.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, there's a lot of pliability there, right, with their brain.
yes.
What about your husband? Because also he was a part of this experience. What is your husband's gift? Because y'all needed each other in these moments.
Yes, I believe my husband's true gift is leadership. And, when you are even weary or weak, it takes someone to lead, just like his first statement. This is not an option. Losing's not an option. We will get through this. And then you're like, yeah, we will. But, now I can follow in that leadership. So I would say his true gift is leadership.
Wow, and it all came together, in a very synergistic, type of way, right?
Yes, and he's led our family in so many different ways, to the point too that now my daughter wants to follow his footsteps in with regards to a career. So yes, he's an excellent leader, and servant's heart is everybody's happier. I find that people that come up here and we're making food to serve a community that needs it, and people are so happy here. We had a mom that say, yeah, so my son, he doesn't waste smiles. And there sure are a lot of smiles in the pictures that we're seeing up here for my son, which warmed my heart, obviously.
Isn't that nice? Mm-hmm. It's wonderful news to hear.
It is.
Well, I want to pick your brain because
Sure.
you've done something that a lot of people, wish to do, and they want to start a nonprofit to where they can go out and they can start helping people in their community. Like I've oftentimes, thought about starting nonprofits that are, sports or martial arts related.
Yes.
But I think the big question is like, where do you start? Where do you begin? How does this happen? If you could, take me down the road of your process.
Sure. So I never even thought about nonprofit. I was working with Memorial Hermann Hospital in their Canopy Center, which is a cancer survivorship, teaching a course there called Nutrition Oncology, and just helping the cancer patients and survivors on taking a good, better, and best approach in their eating. And again, a good, better, best. I don't want to stress anybody out. I don't want them to get overwhelmed. That's not my intention. But if you could just make yourself a little bit better than you did yesterday, and then a little bit better than you did the day before, you become, you start to grow and start to heal. So COVID happened and everything shut down, and I had to go on Zoom calls. I'm terrible with technology. And when I say terrible, that is understatement. I mean, it's wonky. So I had one of the patients that kept saying to me, there's a little chat going on and you're not following. And my husband and I, we do media for nonprofits. I can come help you with this. And I said, oh, I'd love that. And after I hung up with her, I was like, nonprofit. I think I told you this before. My husband calls my cookbook my very big business card. He's like, if you know her, you have one. And, so I never wanted to make this a money-making thing. I wanted to make this a help others kind of thing. Maybe if you guys knew these things, this won't happen to you, you know? And so we met. I called her back and said, I want to talk to you a little bit about a nonprofit. And then when she came to me, she said, I have no idea why this never crossed my mind before. She had been in my class at this point for 3 years, just taking the classes over and over, loved the information, did a little bit of a deep dive, changed a lot of things, her and her husband. And she talked to me about it, and she said, look, it doesn't mean you don't make money. It means all the money you make or is donated goes directly back into your organization.
Yes.
This was a perfect fit. It's interesting because I had a lot of plans for this place, but I still believe that God has morphed it into something way more beautiful. My plans, I'm sure he laughed at. That's a great start. I gave you a little glimmer, but that's not where this is going. When I get to work with pediatric cancer patients, and then I invite them back to cook with my teenagers here in school classes, I stand back and I'm just in awe of what's actually going on here. But I think that you have to have a strong mission and a strong vision. And what I thought was, the community is going to, of course, rally around these people who have cancer or have horrible diagnosis, and they're going to donate to this kitchen so we can feed these people. But what ended up happening was a really large percent of our monthly donors and sponsors are cancer patients or immediate family members of cancer patients, and that blew me away. It's a statement. It says, we don't want this place to go away. Please keep this place going.
It's an empathic statement.
It's amazing. So a strong mission and a strong vision and sharing that with others. When our programs first started, I had more volunteers than I did people. I want to help you with that. I want to help you with that. And so then everyone was here and we're like, so nobody showed up. Let's have a muffin and a coffee. But they're growing. They're starting to grow now.
Yeah, but you've taken it and you've made it, so much more. I remember you saying that, yes, cancer is what, got the ball rolling, but like you're helping people with type 2 diabetes.
All kinds of things. When you focus on that anti-inflammatory whole food diet, and I hate diet, the word, way of eating, way of living, it morphs from what you eat into a lifestyle. Because then you're more concerned about, your exercise regimen or what you're putting on your skin, all kinds of things it goes into. So we like to call it an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. And that's, I just really think that that's the best way to sum us up here. And one thing does lead to another and another and another. And then eventually, like just a ton of smiles and laughter, and people always want to come back.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Diet to me implies, momentary, lifestyle, forever, hopefully.
And I think the biggest problem is people beat themselves up. They have something that they're like, I know I shouldn't have eaten that. And my biggest thing back is like, it's fine. You don't have to wait till next week, next month, next year. Your next meal is your next best choice.
Yep. Get that ball rolling. Momentum is a real thing.
Yes.
It brings me to this right here. You spoke about it, a second ago, your business card, right?
My big business card. It's real thick.
Tell me, what is the process, for you as an author? Are you somebody that you like to write a little bit every night? Are you someone that, you dedicate 12 hours, 7 days, and then you got your book pumped out? I'm also an author, so I'm very curious,
so
your process.
It's kind of funny. I don't follow recipes ever. And so when people were like, you need to write this down, and I was like, oh, okay. So I just kind of had like I call it my big fat blue book of lies. And it was a blue book that my mom had given me with a sweet little message inside. And I would write a few things down. And then I would try them. And if the kids liked them, it was a test passed. And I knew what I was putting in my stuff, but I would say a palm full of salt. And my friend was like, that's ridiculous. Like, give me your palm. And this is, so just so you know, this is a quarter cup in a huge pot, of soup or something like that. So I actually had to go back and measure things. Now, that's for everybody else. I cook with my eyes and my heart. So it kind of tastes like that, but then they'll be like, well, that's not in the recipe. And I'm like, I know, right? But that's why you're here. Now you're picking up different things, So my kids were in elementary school, and they'd go off to school 9 to 3, and I couldn't believe when the time was up, that's what I was doing. I was writing things down, writing recipes, trying, and then when they came home, we tried. And if they didn't like it, we ripped the page out, threw it out, start again. These are, I wouldn't say I personally wrote every single one of these. These are family recipes and recipes from friends that were given to me, tried and true, that I substituted things. So if it had, a cup of sugar, I was like, well, we can't do that. So we're going to take that out. We're going to substitute this in. The one that I think I can use as the best example is something like everyone loves Italian food. So chicken parmesan. And typically with chicken parmesan, your breaded chicken is kind of doused in egg and then breaded in breadcrumb, which can be very inflammatory.
Yeah.
So we came up with another, we call it our grainless breading, and it's a mix of different kinds of flours, and the secret in there is ground sunflower seeds that makes it crisp perfectly. So there's substitutes for everything. You just have to, make them work. And I took a lot of steps out. Recipes are like, do this, and then hold it over here for 5 seconds and put it back over here. And they're just so cumbersome that people look at that. Sometimes they look at a recipe and they'll just keep going. It's too long. So I try to minimize ingredients and minimize steps.
That's what the great coaches do. They find a way to simplify the most, complex, scenarios or plays, and they simplify it, for their athletes to understand and digest it.
Yes.
Question. One of my favorite things is to see my ideas turn into something tangible, right? There's something special. What did it feel like in your heart, to birth this book? Because it's like, I kind of feel like it's birthing a child.
Oh,
I've never given birth to a child, but I'm proud of it just like I am my children.
Yes, and it was great. It was just, I feel like when I look at that, I look back and this is what I think of is putting the stuff in front of my children and their friends and watching their little faces and, and just knowing like that passed the test or that did not, and then people will say, hey, I followed this recipe and did it, and I've got to go back and look at it, be like, oh yeah, right. Yeah, I'm going to go try that again. I forget.
Yeah.
So, but yes, it was, all I want this to do is to help other people. If this helps, it's amazing. So that's the intention is I don't need them written down for myself, but if somebody else does, take it and run with it. I'm very proud of what our family has accomplished because it was a major family project.
Oh, it's beautiful,
Thank
on
you.
the eyes,
Thank
I imagine
you.
the contents are even more.
Thank you.
One more thing I really wanted to pick your brain about, and it went from listening to that podcast that we did. You spoke about the wisdom that you garnered from your parents. Seems like your parents were a very strong foundation. They did a wonderful job. It's probably, majority of the reason why, you are who you are today, Tell me a couple of little things that you picked up, from your mom and your dad that you have taken and, continuously used in your teachings, in your parenting and your marriage.
Sure. So my mom actually passed away a couple of years ago, and she was the one, she was actually raised in an orphanage for a lot of her life. Her dad passed away, and her mom had an abundance of children and just couldn't. So she was in an orphanage, but she never had a bad thing to say. So if you can imagine, it was kind of remarkable. She had all these great stories, but that was because she believed, she just had this childlike faith, which I probably got from her. And she told us, as my sister and I, that we could be anything we wanted. So when someone tells you something, you have the choice to believe or not to believe. And I did believe that. I believed I could do anything I wanted to do. And my dad and my mom, they just really, we know that we were loved and we were wanted children. So we had a wonderful childhood. I know that's not everyone's story, but I enjoy that I had that wonderful childhood and wanted to pass that on to my students and to my own children. But to have that experience where, let's just take this opportunity and leave this place a little bit better than it was before. So if it is working with a young child, maybe the Post-its, maybe they'll start speaking life into themselves. Maybe they will believe that if they already, there's a lot of negativity in this society and this world today.
Way too much.
When we believe the negative more, if someone tells you an insult, you bank that. And someone tells you a compliment, we dismiss it or we easily forget it. It should be the other way around.
Yes.
So we have to speak life and positivity into ourselves, or the other side, the grass on the other side gets watered. You have to even that out. So with your thinking.
Wow, if anyone, has a reason to have, like a negative, sad story, it sounds like it would have been your mother. But for her, to water the grass where she was
Yes,
standing, so to
and then,
speak, right?
she met my dad, and, he came from this big, loud Italian family, and she found her home there, and they, they raised us, and just like that, loud and louder. And I mean, it was a wonderful time growing up. All of our friends were always welcome. It didn't matter if it was 1:00 in the morning or 11:00 at night. Anybody was welcome. You come in, my dad's like, "What can I make you? An omelet?" Yeah, I mean, 11:00 at night. You guys hungry? You want an omelet? It was crazy. But this is where this servant heart and what can I get you started. And this is what we knew. So now this is just what we do.
Wow. Well, I'm going to wrap all this up, and I'm going to ask you, what do you want your legacy to be whenever this story, is over? And actually, like when we leave a legacy, right, the story's never over.
Never over.
But
I love that.
Let's just say that what do you want that legacy to be when people are talking about Michelle Keys and the Keys ingredients?
I do hope they remember the love. We get kids in here and they're little bitty, and mine was 6. I got 8 and 9-year-old boys that come in here that just cook. I mean, they can chop, and I mean, it's amazing what they can do. And I can't help but I put my eyes on them. I give them a big hug, and I kind of wonder, will you be running this someday? Like, that's what I would love. I would love to know that somebody that learned here and felt the love here could, maybe they move somewhere else and open exactly the same thing, or somebody's got to take over for me. I can't do this forever. I mean, I want to, but we'll see.
Yes. Well, unfortunately, right, like Father Time is undefeated, but with everything that you've amassed and all the knowledge that you have and your full heart, like, we can do it for as long as we can,
Yes,
right?
yes, God willing, as long as I can. And I feel like this has always been, I had no idea that this is what I was going to be doing now. But the same way that I have this gumption to get up and go and do this every day, I think when the chapter's closing, I'll know that too and be ready to pass the torch.
Right? Mm-hmm. Purpose is an amazing thing.
It is.
It'll keep you going. And
Yes.
I really do feel like something that you have right here, I think the things that you've amassed, like I think you could probably do this till, the last time you open your eyes. Like, this
I
is
agree.
just one of those operations.
I agree. Yes. My grandfather was 89 when he passed, and he was sitting having a cup of coffee, which, I really love my coffee. And when his son found him, he was still warm, and so was the coffee. He just was like, have a couple sips and peace out. So
That's perfect.
right? I know.
Oh my God. Well, thank you so much for coming back for round 2.
Thank you for having me. This was wonderful.
Yeah, we're going to actually put Carson in the hot seat.
Wonderful.
Pick his brain a little bit. But guys, thank y'all for listening to the Be Someone podcast. Stick around. We're going to talk to the man himself, Carson. And I don't know, y'all go out and y'all be that someone.
Lights, camera, session. Use the flow, molasses. Blue the line, my faction. Future brightening glasses. Applause from the masses.
This is the Be Someone podcast.